Welcome to the Second Bite podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
And welcome to the Second Bite podcast. My name is Todd Taskey, and I am your host, where we get the opportunity to talk with top CEOs and entrepreneurs about creating, building, and then exiting their business. And I think what people really love about this podcast is that we talk to CEOs that they are unfamiliar with, but have still accomplished a great success in exiting their business for 7 or 8 figures. And today I have my guest, Michael Quint from Bluetext. Michael, we're super happy to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Todd. I'm excited for the conversation.
Excellent. So this podcast is brought to you by the good folks here at Potomac Business Capital, where we help entrepreneurs like Michael maximize the value of their business during a transaction. We spent 15 years perfecting our strategies for M&A. So if you want to learn more, you can find us on PotomacBusinessCapital.com or reach out to me through the podcast or on LinkedIn. We're also happy to shout out to our sponsor, the good people at E. Cohen. And E. Cohen is a CPA firm in Rockville, Maryland. They provide a full suite of accounting and consulting services. They'll also help you arrange your financials in a way that potential buyers will love the way that you look. Forbes says that they're one of the most recommended accounting firms in America. They've been a best place to work for the past decade. So thanks to the good people at E. Cohen for their support of the podcast. You can visit them at ecohen.com. So Michael, super happy to have you. Thanks for being on the show. As I said, to start, there's a lot of good things that I think we can learn from you and about the transaction that you did with Bluetext. But maybe you could start just with an intro and tell us what Bluetext is and what you do and who you do it for.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Todd. Happy to do that. So Bluetext is a fully integrated marketing agency based in Washington, D.C. If you think about what we do for our clients, there's really 3 aspects of it. There's strategy, presentation, delivery. Strategy is what do you want to say to the market from a messaging standpoint. Presentation is what does that look like from a website, branding, PowerPoint, go-to-market, visual perspective. And then delivery is, okay, we know what we want to say. We know what that looks like. Let's go take it out into the market. Public relations, advertising, content marketing, social media. And so we've got a really awesome roster of business to business, business to consumer, startups, established companies. All companies are looking to help drive their message out into the market in more effective ways.
That's a great summary. And to put it in context for our listeners, what's the approximate size of Bluetext? How many people work there?
Yeah, so we've got about 60 people full-time, plus a handful of people that support us through lots of different activities. We've probably got about 50 active clients. We've got a big office across from the National Cathedral in D.C. And so we've just got a great staff of people that are really focused on client service and client delivery and really making sure that whatever we sign up to do for our clients, we do it above and beyond expectations.
Excellent. One of the reasons I was excited for us to talk today, that you had a very successful transaction back in October of 2017, so almost 4 years ago. And while there's no transaction that goes perfectly well, in addition to the economics that you enjoyed up front, I'd like to talk a lot about what life has been like post-transaction, because you hear, stories good and bad. We can talk about the actual process maybe in a minute. But maybe you could talk a little bit about Eastport, the people that acquired you, and then what life has been like post-close for you.
No problem. So I would say that Eastport was probably the ideal partner for Bluetext. And one of the reasons why they were so good is that their goal was to be a house of brands as opposed to a branded house. And therefore, they didn't want us to have to, or they didn't force us to become Eastport. In fact, if you look at our website today or look at any materials from us, nothing really says Eastport. So Bluetext is not an Eastport agency, even though we are an Eastport agency. And what was great about them as a partner is they really let us do our own thing. They believed in our financials. They believed in our model. They believed in our process for doing things. They didn't want to come in and take on an operating role in the business. What they wanted to do was they wanted to allow Bluetext to continue what it was doing and augment its efforts and its opportunities for growth. So the way that I look at it is with Eastport, there's maybe 10 to 15 agencies that they own all under the same belt. And what I say to people is, I can use as much or as little of my partner agencies as needed to deliver for my clients. I'm not forced to do it. It's certainly encouraged to do it, but whatever's works best for the client, they've trusted us to continue to grow our business and be successful at it. Let me give you a quick example. One of my largest clients was entering a new geographic market where Bluetext did not have a presence. And what was exciting about that is I was able to reach out to one of my partner agencies inside of the Eastport network, get them on board. They were able to subcontract through me. I already knew the client, long-term relationship with the client, get them up and running very quickly in order to deliver great results for that client in that new market. And so what Eastport has been giving me is a platform to offer more opportunities and services to my clients as needed. But at the same time, Eastport has left me and my team left us alone to continue to deliver as they had expected us to when they bought the company back in 2017.
I think a lot of people, when they think of a holding company, they think of, the big four, the WPPs and the Omnicoms of the world, and they all get really nervous about that, particularly when it relates to the earnout or the back end, right, of a transaction.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
It sounds like you didn't have that kind of an experience. Could you point to any specific reason why?
Yeah, that type of transaction was not what we were looking for. We really never thought about, working with you on trying to find a partner like that. We've heard too many horror stories of there's a huge opportunity with your second or third payment as an example, but it's so hard to reach and so many bad things happen. In fact, we've seen it happen to some other companies in the DC market. I think when we decided to sell to Eastport, we realized that we were not done from a business perspective. We looked at them as a strategic partner, and they weren't going to come in and try and change us. They didn't have a set formula for coming in and stripping out the management team and taking our services and finding ways to cut costs in order for growth. What they did is they looked at it and said, our model is a little bit different. We're going to come in, we're going to let them continue to do things and then provide them air cover, resources, assistance as needed. And so with the big agencies, they've got a formula that they're very comfortable with, the big holding companies, and we didn't think that was the right approach for us. From a financial standpoint as well, we were looking for a transaction whereby it would be all cash, majority of the payment up front, with a small payment maybe at the end of the 4-year run. And so in that sense, Eastport turned out to be the perfect partner for us, both from a financial, operational, and growth perspective.
Also, I remember we spent a lot of time on legal to make sure that all those Eastport promises that they made up front, actually we were secured in. Anything you could comment more on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, having a great lawyer is an incredible asset to a business owner, as well as a great accounting firm. I know that E. Cohen is sponsoring this. We actually brought E. Cohen in the middle of our due diligence process to help us make sure it was done properly and to expedite the process. They've got a lot of experience doing that. And in fact, they also do outsourced accounting and financial services for companies like mine. And I still work with them today to outsource my financial management to them. So yeah, having a great lawyer who has done enough transactions. We interviewed a few different recommendations came in. We picked someone that we thought could support us, that understood us. I had a couple interesting things about our transaction. At the time of transaction, there was 4 owners, all with an equal say in the matter and equal viewpoints and slightly different viewpoints sometimes on different things. And so having a lawyer that could come in and help navigate that, work with the parent company, turn the documents around in a timely but smart manner, help us understand, where are your negotiating points, where are your points where you have to, this is the way it's always done as an example, was a super benefit to me. And in fact, again, the lawyer that I worked with through that transaction I still rely on today for lots of different services, whenever the business needs them.
Yep, excellent. And that's David Schwinger, who we got to meet together. Did a great job and actually helped me on a couple of other transactions. So thanks to David on that. Tell me just to the degree that you're comfortable with, anything you want to share about the economics of the transaction. I know that in your transaction, we got more cash up front than I think most deals do. And getting a certain percentage of cash up front was important to you as it was to the rest of your partners, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, cash is obviously king and very important. And when you're entering into a marriage with someone that you don't know in an arranged marriage, no matter how much you get to meet them up front, you never really know how it's going to work out. And so in our viewpoint, the majority cash up front was a very important element of making sure that it was a good transaction for us. So you were very helpful, Todd, in helping us understand kind of the economics of a business our size, what a business like ours could be bought at from a perspective of where our EBITDA was at the time. And I would tell people that while focusing on revenues is fantastic, if you're ever thinking about doing any kind of transaction, make sure you understand the economics of your EBITDA, how it's working, where it's coming from, and how you can grow that. Because at the end of the day, no matter how sexy your business is, or no matter how many great clients you have, or how awesome your people are, the bottom line is people are buying companies because of their financials, the financial success, the financial growth, and then the future financial opportunity. Yeah, and so if I recall, Todd,
go
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I recall, we got bought for just slightly north of 7 times TTM EBITDA at the time, which we thought was a great transaction. Obviously, if we had let the business grow for a few more years, we might be able to get that up to 8, 9, 10 times. But I would always say to people that predicting future success in a business is not always easy. Who knows what might have happened after that transaction if the markets had cratered or things had not gone the way we had planned. So we've been able to continue to grow and see a nice reward to our parent company since that time. But we didn't want to be greedy. We just wanted to get a fair price for where we were as a business, with the knowledge and hope that we'd find a partner that would enable us to continue to grow and execute on the business, which we have done the last 4 years.
Yeah, and I think we being your partners and I, felt pretty comfortable with the valuation that we got from Eastport because we had offers from other companies, right? And so when we were beginning the process, when we started the process, what kind of concerns or worries did you have just in general? Does anything come back to memory of concerns that you had when we got started?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always concerns about what is this new owner going to do to my business, my personal lifestyle, how I run the business, how I think about things. I've heard horror stories. I've heard great stories. And so if someone comes in with the formula for how they do things, and you know that, hey, I'm only doing this for the money and the next 2, 4, 6 years are going to be horrible, that's not really a very smart way of doing things, right? You don't really want to do something because you have to, or you know that it's not going to be good. So the right partner was very important to us. The right financial model was very important to us. What was interesting about Eastport was clearly understood our business, but weren't going to come in and try and re-engineer the business. And so someone who could come in and kind of understand what we had, let us continue to drive our success, run alongside us as a partner instead of being that kind of tough, negative parent company. So I definitely dreaded the idea of thinking to myself, what is each quarter going to look like? What are my numbers going to have to look like? Am I going to get called to Memphis to have to answer to a tough manager? And maybe it's because of our business success, we didn't have to do that kind of stuff. But I also thought that was an important aspect of who we were going to be partnering with and the right partner for us.
Yeah. And let's finish up on kind of the beginning part of the process. We spoke to a few companies in, management presentations, number one, and a bunch of phone calls that helped you, I think, develop a little bit of clarity around what would be the right partner. and how Eastport perhaps compared to others, some that had formulas like the way you described, some that wanted to fold you into what it was that they were doing. How important was that in kind of finalizing your decision about who you would ultimately rely on?
It was very, very important. And if the decision to sell your business is one that you're making as opposed to someone forcing you to make, you have a lot more choice to think about how to do it in the most effective way, at least at the time, what you think is going to be the most effective way. And so, I've got an incredible staff that I rely on and work very closely with and really care about. And I wanted to make sure that they'd be taken care of. They'd be part of, the long-term health and success of the business. That was very important for me. Someone that came in, again, who understood our financial model, understood what we were trying to do. It wasn't going to come in and try and, re-engineer everything on us. So definitely think about all of those things. And I think that as you're going through those introductory conversations, we probably did, 15, 18, 20 conversations, you definitely start to hear some trends and things in people's minds and crystallize for yourself, hey, I think this is going to be the right partner for me. Now, you might think you're picking the right partner. Things could change. People's attitudes change, markets change, conditions change. But for us, I think that talking to enough companies crystallized for us that the approach and model that Eastport was taking was the right one for us. And again, I would say to people, you can try and map out the best path forward for yourself and for your business through a transaction. It's not always going to come to fruition, but when it does and what you hope is going to happen does happen, it's a really positive feeling for you and your partners and your staff.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the certainty that you describe comes from going through that process of talking with at least a few potential buyers so that you can compare personalities, economics, deal structure, all of those things.
Absolutely. Yep. And everyone comes at it a little bit differently. Everyone's in different acquisitive modes for different reasons. And so you're never going to know exactly what's in the mind of a buyer, where their money is coming from, what they're thinking about. Are they looking for a desperation home run? Are they looking to hit lots of singles and doubles? You're never going to know that exactly, but the more questions you ask and the more you try and learn about those things and rely on your experience, Todd, to kind of see enough deals in your time to get a sense for what kind of buyer they're going to be or what they're hoping to achieve. You also know there's certain people that they're never going to give you the money that you deserve or that you think that your business is worth. And you have to realize that and walk away from that as well.
Right.
So there's no exact right answer in terms of who is the right buyer or how do you find that right buyer. But in the same way that people have been successful growing their business, and I felt like I had grown a good ability to make decisions over the first, 5-6 years of the business growth, I felt like putting that decision-making power into this process enabled us to come away with the right transaction.
Right. And then we had a few LOIs, right? Tell me what you remember about the LOI process, first of all, by comparing them, and then really how important that is in terms of setting the stage for negotiating your larger documents.
Yeah. So first of all, it's very exciting when you get an LOI, right? Someone's interested in buying or investing in your company. And so anyone that tells you that's not a big deal, especially for their first major transaction, it's a very exciting time when that comes in and you finally kind of look at it and see this document. So if you recall in our process, Todd, the time between LOI and the time for closure of the transaction was actually, I think it was almost like 9 or 10 months.
Yeah, it was unusual.
And for a variety of reasons, Eastport wanted to package up a few transactions together, which turned out just fine for us, which was definitely a long time to wait. And I think probably not how normal transactions go, but hey, like I said, you don't always get to script them how you want to. So looking in LOI, and that's when really the role of the investment banker comes in, the role of the lawyer comes in, the role of the accounting firm comes in. People that have gone through this process before, people that know what to look for, people that know what the red flags are. And so, I could send the document to our lawyer, David Schwinger, and within one day I'd have, hey, let's set up a call to go through these 13 items that are raised.
Right.
And that's what you want, right? I know how to grow in business. I know how to run a business. I'd never gone through the process of selling a business. And so you need to rely on a strong network of people around you, people that have your best interest in mind, people that understand your business enough to know what you're trying to achieve. And what's great about a good lawyer, I think, is that they don't tell you how to do something. They present different viewpoints to you that then you can take, and they know that you're probably a smart entrepreneur. Maybe you've gone through this before, maybe think about things a little bit different than them. So they present it and they say, hey, path A means this, path B means this, path C means this. Let's talk about the pluses and minuses of those different paths. To having time to educate myself was very important. Of course, when you get an LOI in your mind, your head starts spinning. Let's get this thing signed. Let's get this thing closed. We got to get this behind us. But that's not really how business works. I do remember thinking about a whole new world of items related to our employment agreements, related to future compensation, related to business structure, business ownership, tons of things that I'd probably never thought once about. I knew they'd be coming, but all of a sudden they were forefront in my mind and had to deal with them and go through the process with those. The other thing I would say is our Eastport came in and did a QE, quality of earnings report. They came in that summer to go through that. They sent in a team, and that's a long process too. And so you need to be on your feet, ready to go, ready to answer questions, explain the who, what, where, when, why, everything related to your business, so they've got a perfect picture of what they're buying.
Yeah, and fortunately, we were able to lean on E. Cohen for that, which I know is helpful, because there's a lot of emotions going. Whether it takes 9 months, which again is the longest transaction I've ever had from LOI to close, or it's 90 days, or it's 30 days, there's tons of emotion that goes on. If there's one seller, I think it's multiplied when there's 4 partners. Do you remember anything about the emotion of that time as it kind of dried down a little bit over the summer?
Yeah, I think that, like with everything in business, Todd, slow and steady wins the race. So as much as you want to run up the hill and grab everything and say, let's go, let's go, let's go. But it's certainly an emotional time. Thinking about what we've built and what we've grown is not necessarily going to be exactly what it is in the future, but we're okay with that. And so selling at a time of strength for a business is actually great.
Yeah.
If you're selling at a time when you have to sell, never a good sign. But if you're selling at a time of strength, and when you have 4 business partners, there is negotiation, there's thought process, there's varying opinions, there's people in different financial situations that probably need things to happen at different paces. So I'm a pretty slow and steady kind of guy from a business standpoint. I like to analyze the situation, think through it, try and make the right decision for where we are as a business at the time. I would say that there's no rush in that process. Take your time, think through it, talk to your advisors, make sure that everyone is comfortable with what you're doing, because the last thing you want is someone, a decision to be made that someone's not comfortable with, that you're going to hear about it for a long time.
And so, I think the other thing that's interesting in your case is that when we did the transaction, for a lot of different reasons, we chose to have the second bite end at the end of the 4th year, which is coming up in October.
Mm-hmm.
But you are quite content in your life within Bluetext, the additional upside even beyond the 4 years, and the opportunity that all of that presents. And oftentimes when I work with an entrepreneur, I hear, I wouldn't be a good employee or working for anybody else, and I want the shortest possible earn-out period because I'm going to go do whatever's next right after that. And your philosophy around that, or as has turned out, is different than that. Can you share some of your thinking there?
It's a great question, Todd. What entrepreneur doesn't want to say, hey, I want to have my cake and eat it too. Give me the money, keep me around as short as possible. I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to never have to work for these people. I didn't think I would be a good employee for people. I'm pretty set in my ways and like to do things how I like to do things. With Eastport, again, as I mentioned, they've really let us do our own thing and figured out, because we've been so successful and continue to grow. And at the time, I thought 4 years was an eternity. I will tell you that I've got no plans to go anywhere. I'm going to be working with Bluetext and my team for a lot longer. I'm going to continue to grow this business, and we've seen tremendous growth. Through the pandemic, we saw great growth because of all the different digital and work that we do. We continue to hire great people. And so what I would say is, you're never going to find an entrepreneur that doesn't say, hey, I want to be in this as short as possible and get out. But the right situation can turn out to be very beneficial to you, successful to you. I'm turning 50 next year. I'm not looking to go run and do this over again. I'm really happy with where I am. I'm happy with the growth. We've had some changes in the management of the business over the last 4 years that have worked out really well for our staff and for our clients. And so what I would say again is, you have in your mind what you think it's going to be like, but don't shut the door on other ways of structuring things and other ways of doing things that could work for you, because in the long run, I've got a great setup. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not counting down the days, for my 4 years to be over with. I plan to be doing this with Bluetext and Eastport for a while.
And so let me just follow up on that for a second, because if I'm a listener, I would say, well, God, are there any leading indicators that would tell me this is the right group or not? And one thing I would add, and then I'd like your comment, is it felt like you guys had a pretty clear vision on what it was that would be the right future for the business itself, where others, their vision is, if we could become an important piece in an overall offering, give us more ability to cross-sell, give us more access to a balance sheet, get us walked into more customers, whatever the case may be. That would be the piece that would help propel us well beyond our expectations. And you guys had a pretty good system, right, for developing business, growing business, landing and expanding. So that's the thing that for me, as the banker and the advisor, when you have clarity there, makes it easier as we go through this process to be able to identify the guys that are the right fit. Is there anything? Could you comment on that, number one? And is there anything that you would advise other entrepreneurs on that might be a leading indicator to know you're headed down the right path?
Well, I think that, as I mentioned before, selling your business at a time of strength is a great place to be. You're doing well. You don't have to sell the business, but you decide that the right reason for a different, it's the right time to do it for a potential variety of reasons. Understanding what it is you're trying to achieve in a transaction. Obviously, cash is important. Everyone wants to find a way to monetize the effort and the work they've put into a business. But understand what that goal is, and then look at either other companies they've bought. How has that worked out for them? If you're looking to find a place that's going to be home for a long time, have the other agencies they bought, have they found a home for a long time? If you're looking to, propel your growth to new levels because you've got a whole new service offering, does that work for their other businesses? So try and be clear up front what your goals are, and take the financial aspects of it off the table, because obviously that's going to be probably 1 or 1A for everyone.
Right.
And think about, what is my goal? What am I trying to achieve? And then which partner is the right one for it? And to your point, Todd, taking a business like ours at the time and making it, a smaller piece of a larger thing that is kind of, just another cog in the wheel that's going on, it probably wouldn't have worked for us. We probably wouldn't have wanted to do that. I don't recall if we had any specific offers that were going to do that for us, but the one that we took was much more attractive because it enabled us we saw much more growth opportunity in our business. And so we didn't want to have to shut the door on that and put the business in someone else's hands. Now, obviously it was a gamble, but it's worked out better than we could have expected by them enabling us to continue to grow the business.
That's great. And do you remember, it was over 4 years ago, so you may not, but do you remember when and how we met, or how we met?
Yeah, you were recommended to my business partner, Jason Siegel, by someone else in DC. I can't remember.
Chris DeLucchi, from DeLucchi.
Oh, Chris DeLucchi. Okay.
Yeah.
With a very successful transaction. Chris recommended you, came in. Mr. Skeptical here was like, what's this guy doing here? What's going on here? What is this guy trying to sell me? And it opened my eyes to, and I'm extremely skeptical. I don't trust anyone unless they're referred to me in general. All you people hitting me up on LinkedIn, just FYI.
Yeah.
But you presented a very logical process. It was very low risk for us jumping in to have to do it. And it felt like, why wouldn't this be the right time to go down this path and explore it, see what was out there?
So let me talk about that with you for a second, because I remember, so Chris DeLucchi from DeLucchi Plus, so shout out to Chris and thank you for that introduction. We got a very good, successful transaction done for her. And we had 3 or 4 offers for her. And obviously she could only pick one of them. So there was a couple left that were still really looking to accomplish something. And there were a couple that didn't like Chris's business for different reasons that I knew would really like Bluetext, one of them being Eastport, actually. So as I remember, Chris introduced us. I came in and my approach to you was, hey, I got these 4 or 5 groups. I think we should talk to them. And that got us all the way down the road to this great transaction. Here we are 4 years later. But the part I wanted to pick up on is there's a lot of people that feel like, well, if I'm going to think about a transaction, man, I need to be preparing for a year or 2 or 3.
Todd, I just lost you. Can you hear me still?
Even your advice on why.
Todd, I lost you for a second. You froze for a second there. Okay. You were saying that people think they need to be prepared for even going to market.
Yeah, or that they need to prepare themselves for a year or 2 so the business looks just so. So comment on bankers do their piece, right, where they adjust, earn, add backs, and do those kind of things, and so the financials come out in the way that makes the company look best. But what was your and Jason's opinion on let's just explore this versus no, we need to take a year and get the business ready for sale?
I think that if you have an attractive asset, there's not that much preparation you have to do. If you've got a lot of skeletons in your closet that are going to cause you problems through a transaction, obviously you need to clean those up. We had nothing to hide. We felt very good about where we were as a business. Could we professionalize some things? Absolutely. Could we, turn up the notch on how we did reporting and our numbers and our finances? But that was all going to get taken care of by Eastport through the QE and the due diligence process.
Right.
And so I would say that there's never a bad time to explore, to kick tires. You might be positively surprised. You don't have to go through the process or have to close the transaction if you don't like what you're hearing. It's obviously a great time, great feeling to go into it when your business is successful. But the idea of having to prepare for going and pitching the business, I think it actually could help you to go out and say, how am I going to position myself? How am I going to talk to these people about us? What is their viewpoint of us? Does my story resonate? Because everyone knows how their story resonates when they're trying to sell their services. But when you're trying to sell your business, you say, hey, is this going to resonate? And again, I would say, as much as people don't always believe this, the numbers are what speaks for themselves. And so if your business is successful and you're generating cash and you're driving business at a profitable level, there's going to be a lot of people interested in figuring out how you're doing that, why you're doing that, and could that work for me as a potential buyer?
Yeah, very well said. Thank you for that. So let me ask and finish up with 2 last questions.
Sure.
So for somebody thinking about this process, if there's 1 or 2 either key takeaways or key pieces of advice you would share with another business owner thinking about this process or going into this process, what would those 1 or 2 or 3 things be?
It's a great question. I think it would be smart to understand what your goals are and why you might be wanting to do this. And so, doing it from a position of strength is always helpful and smart and obviously better, but understand what your goals are at the current time, and then your goals through what kind of financial partner you might be going to bed with, in the sense of, are they going to let us do our thing? Are they going to make us part of something else? So all of those elements are very important to understand the goals. And then 2, I would say that you never know till you get out there. Now, it can certainly be a time-consuming process. And, working on making sure the story's right and the deck looks good and the book is all good to go. But there's no harm in dipping your toes in the water and seeing what's out there. especially in today's market. There's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of buyers that are looking to do things. And so you never know how valuable your asset might be, depending on what your goals are. That being said, it's not just your short-term goals. Again, it's your long-term goals. I knew that if one of the big conglomerates had come in to buy us, it wouldn't have been a great outcome for us long-term. It wouldn't be what we wanted to do. So think about short-term, what are my goals? Long-term, what are my goals? And be open to the opportunities and different things that are out there. Eastport was not on my radar ever for 1 second. I had no idea who they were before you introduced us to them. It turned out to be a great business partner for us.
That's great.
And so keep your eyes open. Think about what your short-term and long-term goals are. And you do not need to overthink or over-engineer the process, because unless you're in a fire sale mode, you never have to say yes to something. But there's a pretty good chance that when you see what's presented to you, it's going to be too hard to turn it down.
Great. So that's great advice. And since you're on an advice roll, I'll ask you this for our last question that I'd like to end with. So you have been very successful in your life by most respects. You've built a very successful business. You've had a successful exit, another one on the horizon. You've got a great family and a successful golfer now, just launching or scoring your first hole in one. Is there, other than the golf, is there somebody in particular that you would point to, or a book that you've read that you would credit with having a lasting impact on you and your success?
That's such a great question. I would say there's probably two people. My first boss, a woman named Dawn Whaley, she's actually the president of ShareCare down in Atlanta. When I left my first job, she gave me a book, like The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And she wrote an inscription in the book, which I still have today, which was, these are not the exact words, but along the lines of, open your eyes to other things. And don't be so judgmental, because I was extremely set in my ways as a young person. And the other person I would have to say definitely is my wife, who's got an incredible business mind, is incredibly successful in her own right, and has been the perfect partner to allow me to grow, allowed me to grow and run Bluetext. We have 2 great kids. A lot of people say, "Oh, why didn't you have a third kid?" And I say, Bluetext is our third kid. So we started Bluetext 10.5 years ago. And if you think about my kids being 15 and almost 13, the third one would have been about 10.5 at this point. But she always had a good business sense, always able to me to bounce ideas off of her, and never felt like she always realized the importance of running a business, my responsibility to my team and my staff and my clients and our business partners. And so having that in my life has definitely made the overall process one that was just much easier as I went.
Well, that's great. And it's a great story. You personally and the story of Bluetext is a great one. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I congratulate you on that success. We look forward to watching all that will likely happen in the future with you and with Bluetext and with Eastport. So, Michael, I will say thank you for spending this time with us, and I'll wish you continued success.
That sounds great. Todd, thanks so much for having me. Congrats on all of your success, and look forward to catching up soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.